From the crossroads of the Ozarks, this is PID Radio. Welcome, I'm Derek Gilbert.
Oh, that makes me Sharon Gilbert, and I love saying that. I've been Sharon Gilbert for nigh on 26 and a half years. Going on 27.
6 tickety 2.
I know.
Tickety 7.
Well,
tickety 8. Yeah, tickety 8. Thank you for joining us here in the barn. This wonderful workspace that is only possible because of your generosity and support.
You guys are so good. You're so good. You guys pray for us. You send us your emails and notes, and we really appreciate that. We don't always respond. Just know that due to the amount of information received, sometimes we get it in the post.
Yes.
And we do appreciate that. Many of you send us encouraging cards and letters, and because of you, we're able we get up every day. We don't have to do daily affirmations or anything like that, as the old routine, went with looking in the mirror and saying,
I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and by golly, people like me. Was it Stuart Smalley?
Stuart Smalley, yes.
Al Franken's character.
We don't have to do that because we get up knowing that the creator of all we see, the creator of everything, who has no beginning, has no ending, loves us so much he died for us.
Amen to that. And because we are called to love him with all of our heart, all of our soul, and all of our mind, we do this program and have been for going on 20 years. It'll be 20 years come March.
We need to have something special.
We should bring on a whole bunch of guests that we've featured over the years.
Is it March 3rd or March 5th?
I'll have to look that up. March 5th, I think.
Yeah, I think it's March 5th.
But this will be we are in our 20th year now.
We were either 1 week or 2 weeks ahead of Dr. Future.
That's right.
He should have looked into the future and seen that we were about to do, and gotten in there before us.
Yeah. And our podcast, Mike Bennett, And our podcast has been running even longer than that of the Podfather Adam Curry.
Take that, Adam Curry.
Yeah, the No Agenda podcast, Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak. Great source of news. And Adam, by the way, has come to the Lord.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, you hear him mention that every now and again on his program.
That is
wonderful to hear.
Has he pulled John Dvorak?
No,
along
not yet.
yet.
John is still just he's
crabby.
Still crabby and curmudgeonly. we love his approach to to analyzing the news, and he is a gifted intellect. But anyway, Adam was one of the fellows who created the code that allows the syndication of podcasts back in 2004.
Got him first, but we wouldn't have been able to do it without him.
Right. So. But we still like to say, we are one of the oldest podcasts on the web, which is why they call us the OGs, the old Gilberts. And we are blessed to be here. And again, thank you to you for your support. Please, if you haven't downloaded our app, we encourage you to do so, especially with next week's podcast coming.
Oh, yeah. In fact, you will only be able to listen to that podcast in full on the app.
Yeah, talking about A View from the Bunker, the annual Halloween episode with Dr. Judd Burton, we decided to discuss an ancient ritual practice that is continuing to this day.
Something you can't even talk about, even tangentially, on certain platforms.
Right. We're going to be cautious and not even really use the words.
Just download our app. If you want to hear everything Dr. Judd Burton has to say, download the app because it will only be there in full. It's going to be a very edited, shorter version on certain platforms.
Correct. So if you use that platform, well, by all means, subscribe, click the like button, and hit the bell for notifications. But because we don't want to lose the Mars Hill opportunity on that particular platform, that will be a very carefully edited episode.
Because it deals with things that are, discussed
disturbing
at Halloween and very disturbing. So we don't want to lose the opportunity for this. You don't want to hear something crazy.
Sure. That's why we do this show.
I know. Well, this morning, it was last night, you noticed that our new book, The Gates of Hell, for whatever reason, was the number one new release in theology.
Yeah, Amazon's number one new release in the theology category. Like, okay.
I know.
With all the great theologians around the world, for that to show up in that. Now, some of their categories are a little weird because The Gates of Hell, which didn't, I suppose it does, because it does talk about the symbolism inside the U.S. Capitol.
It does.
Yeah, it's also in the church and state category. So I guess
yes, I noticed that.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that. I thought that was very strange.
I guess it makes sense.
And we're in the top 10 in that.
Yeah. So, well, thank you. Thank you. The book is now officially available at Amazon. The Audible version's been out for a while, but you can now get the hard copy and the Kindle version if you prefer an ebook version. But if you want a hard copy, we've had it available in our store. In fact, it's available as a special offer, which we'll talk about during the break.
Oh, yeah. By the way, if you have...
We sign those.
Oh,
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah.
We sign everything we send out.
Right.
Whether you want it or not. By the way, if you have read or listened to The Gates of Hell, please go to Amazon and review it. We've only had a few reviews, and because of that, because some people love to go in, and I consider this hey, Tom Horn this happened to him all the time, and the fact that it's being targeted, we're being targeted, yay.
Yeah, count it all joy.
Oh, I do. But if you haven't, no matter whether you enjoyed it or hated it, if you would just go into Amazon and give a true review, we'd really appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. We want to preach outside the choir, and I think there's some things in there that may attract the curious. I know the Second Coming of Saturn did. The guys at Mysterious Universe actually did a podcast episode on the book. I wish they'd have called me to have me come on and talk about it. But hey, if you're listening, guys at MU, we're happy to come on your program and talk about the book. Not because we care about getting famous, but we want the information out there because there's a lot of mis and disinformation when it comes to the Word of God.
Exactly. That's why we write Giants, Gods, and Dragons, and we wrote Veneration, and now we've written The Gates of Hell. The titles are accurate, but they're also sort of the kind of titles that will bring in non-believers.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Martis's covers, likewise.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Veneration was brilliant. Gates of Hell, Giants, Gods, and Dragons, all three look like something that could fit in the fantasy section of the bookstore.
And his covers for the Red Wing Saga and for your book.
Yes.
The same thing. Your books are amazing. He is amazing. And he's also a great writer, by the way.
Yes, he is. His What Dwells Beyond, about the UFO, UAP existence of aliens questions, and his most recent book on on Lucifer.
Yes. And I can't think of the name of it. Let me go into... they're all available at Amazon.
But Jeffrey Martis, that's Mardis if you want to look it up. We highly recommend both of his books because he is a solid researcher. And again, his gift as an artist have been put to... He is sort of the secret weapon for Defender Publishing. The covers that have been on the books for Defender Publishing since its inception last, 8-9 years ago.
The Prince of the Power of the Air.
There we go.
Yep.
There we go. Are just absolutely brilliant. You go to a bookstore, I know the Barnes & Noble in Springfield, there's a lot of Defender Publishing books on the shelves, which is really astonishing. I mean, you want to talk about an ego boost, and this is one of those things that went in there is like, okay, Lord, help me to be not proud, because it is not through any of my natural brilliance. Just the Lord's gifted us with certain abilities. And the fact that we're using them for his glory is not, for our own...
No, it's not for our...
aggrandizement.
No, not at all.
But I will tell you, just speaking from a natural perspective, walking into a bookstore with your mom. I remember this was the day that we moved her into the apartments, took her to Barnes & Noble. She loves a bookstore, and took her to the theology shelves, the religion shelves, and said, look, Mom, there's one of my books. There's another one of my books. And, Mom, and watching the expression on her face was like, man, that was a red letter day.
I know.
So, but again, it's only possible because you who are listening have been following what we've been doing, this odd journey that we've been on since 2005, even before 2005, but publicly since 2005 with the launch of the podcast. So we are truly blessed.
We are.
The twists and turns in the road ahead, don't care. The Lord has got it, and we're just happy to go along for the ride. I love the way you put it, though. He promises to be a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path, not high beams illuminating the entire rest of the journey.
No, you get to follow the shepherd's footsteps,
right,
a day at a time.
Yeah, and so if something pops up that catches you off guard, know that it has not surprised the Lord, and that He's still there, and He's still His rod and His staff are with us to take care of any nasties that come along the way.
Amen.
So.
And it's the reason that I wanted to launch the Armored Sheep podcast. This idea that we are following a shepherd and getting into just discussing real things that happen to us in that journey.
Yeah.
and that on that journey that we can trust him no matter what comes our way. Well, you know what's coming the way of the world, like the way I said that, is there's a big meeting going on right now, and guess who's there? Sleepy Joe Biden is there helping out and discussing world matters.
Well, I saw the headline and I thought maybe they'd formed a quartet and they were having practice. You know, I see the name quartet and I start thinking, hello.
Well, I know. In fact, somebody on Facebook said, name this band, or maybe it was on X. I can't remember who.
Yeah.
It may have been Jesus Enrique Rosas. He's got such a great sense of humor. Well, it's the G7 defense meeting. They are in Europe right now, so we've got, sort of grumbly Macron, who has said, no, Israel doesn't have a right to do anything in Lebanon. Historically, France has been in charge of Lebanon. Well, they got that part of the mandate. And
in 1915, thanks to the Sykes-Picot Agreement, Sir Mark Sykes being the negotiator for the British government, and Picot, whose first name I forget, I looked it up recently. Anyway, part of my presentation on the secret history of Israel, they negotiated with one another. It's like, okay, assuming we win against Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, this is how we're going to carve up Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
And Lebanon was part of what France got after World War I. But of course, 1915, the war was still in doubt. I mean, there was no clear winner in sight. And the Sykes-Picot Agreement really complicated things for the Brits because communist agents got it and the Bolsheviks published it in 1917 before the war was over. And the Brits had been promising the Arabs who were rebelling against the Ottomans with the help of T.E. Lawrence of Arabia. They suddenly got wind of this Sykes-Picot. Wait a minute, you guys say you're going to carve up, and we notice that you've taken this territory you promised to us as a homeland. Please explain. Well,
it's the same thing right now. It's how we're going to carve up Israel, Stein.
Yeah, that was, of course, a big part of what was being discussed back from 1915 through 1919.
They're still discussing it.
And they're still discussing it today.
They are. And I think that Macron still feels like France should be in Lebanon.
Just like France thinks it still owns North Africa. Well, yeah, that is interesting that Macron is acting rather colonial towards Lebanon.
Yeah.
Lebanon's history is really tragic and really fractured. It's a microcosm of that part of the world because you've got different religions that are in conflict with one another. There are a lot of Lebanese Christians. Typically, they're Maronite, which is a form of Roman Catholicism. A lot of Maronite Catholics in Peoria, Illinois.
Yeah, because there are a lot of Lebanese
folks there. In fact, they're from a town that Israel. There was an airstrike against a little town in the northern mountains called Aitou, Aitou.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, when I was married the first time, it was to a Lebanese woman from Peoria, and the reception was held at the Aitou Hall. Yeah. Anyway, you've got the Maronite Christians, you've got Druze, you have Sunni Muslims, and then you've got the Shia, and the Shia is where we get Hezbollah. And they've been in conflict with one another for control of Lebanon for a long time. And due to the influence of Iran pumping a lot of money into the Shia community in Lebanon, Hezbollah has become the dominant political and military force. But boy, they've had civil wars going on there back to the 70s. After the PLO got kicked out of Jordan in 1970, Black October.
Oh, yes.
Or Black September, Black September.
Yes.
They fled to Lebanon. And then they got involved in politics there and led to a civil war that lasted for a couple of decades.
Aren't there also Sufists in Lebanon? Or am I thinking Turkey?
Turkey.
Okay.
Mainly Sufists, which is sort of a mystical form of Sunni Islam. Anyway.
The whirling dervishes.
Yeah. They're
Sufists.
This is a problem that a lot of smaller nations have, especially when they're a buffer state between competing powers. Armenia can speak to this. Back, go 2,000 years back, and they were in between the Roman Empire and the Parthian Empire. And Armenia was a buffer state between the two. So was Judea, for that matter. So you find yourself no longer in control of your own country because you've got these powerful nations on either side that want to use you as a pawn in the game against the other big empire.
Which brings us to what's going on right now. Ukraine, many ways, is a buffer state between NATO and Russia.
That's exactly where I was going.
I thought you might be.
Yep.
Well, Zelensky has claimed that he has a peace plan, end of the war in 2025. He knows he can do it, but you have to make Ukraine a member of NATO now.
Yeah. This is his what he calls his path to victory.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen.
There is no path to victory. In fact, Trump said so this past week, and I think that's why Zelensky is not very happy with Donald Trump at the moment.
And I think it's why he wants it now. He sees Trump as probably going to be president.
Well, he's saying in fact, Zelensky was even more direct. He said either we only have two options, either NATO membership or we get nuclear weapons. Like, no.
But here's another thing. Now, he implied, I've seen reports saying he actually stated it. He did not. He implied that he is also, he being Ukraine, they are also at war with aspects of North Korea and Iran, simply because they are supplying weapons to Russia. Now, that is true. Mm-hmm. They are helping Russia with technology and other weapons. But I don't know how much Kim is doing because, honestly, North Korea has nothing. So for him to say that, it's like Zelensky is saying, I'm at war with Russia, North Korea, Iran, and you guys are leaving me with nothing. You're only giving me hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
I just need more.
And the ATACMS missiles and the Storm Shadow missiles and the Leopard tanks and the Challenger tanks and the Abrams tanks.
And personnel.
Yeah, and personnel on the ground who aren't supposed to be there, but, they really are.
Advisors. Advisors has been used for over a century.
Yeah, if you're old like us.
Advisors on the ground.
Remember Vietnam, that's how we got locked in that. Well, there was a report, and Zelensky made this claim, that North Korea is sending soldiers. And South Korean intelligence is saying, yeah, we think that North Korea is sending troops to fight in Ukraine.
That's really odd.
But there are, Western intelligence and analysts saying that seems really implausible. We think that's made up.
But Zelensky has gone from a position of, I'm so grateful you guys are here. He's now demanding.
He's getting desperate because, again, there really is no path to victory here. The report came out yesterday that the incursion that sort of Ukraine's Battle of the Bulge, where they attacked northward toward the town of Kursk, which was home of one of Russia's nuclear power plants, which made some people really nervous. But apparently the Ukrainian forces there have been surrounded, cut off, and an elite Ukrainian unit reportedly surrendered to Russian forces. Again, fog of war, hard to verify. You got pro-Russian, pro-Ukrainian sources claiming completely different things. So hard to know. But when you step back and look from 30,000 feet, the battle lines, the front lines of the conflict have not changed much since Russia's first incursion 2 years ago, February. We're 2.5 years in, and the vaunted counterattack last summer recovered less than 5% of the territory that Russia had conquered during the first month. With great losses, yes. And things really have not changed that much on the ground. Russia is waging a war of attrition. It's got way more men, way more munitions. Ukrainian men are fleeing the country. There was a report yesterday, 19 Ukrainian men arrested at the Moldovan border trying to get out of the country before they were conscripted. It really is not a good situation. And really, it's being pushed by Western neocons who, for some reason, just we've got to keep fighting against Russia. Is it just marketing for the military-industrial complex? So there's a market for their missiles and bullets?
It almost feels like money laundering.
Almost does. A massive wealth transfer.
Yeah, exactly. And is that wealth actually going to help Ukraine, or is that going elsewhere?
Well, it's sent to Ukraine, and then Ukraine...
No, I know that.
Yeah.
What happens when it gets there?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Two things, Ukrainians, elites who are enriching themselves, but the money that doesn't stay with them is turned back around to American corporations selling them missiles and bombs and bullets and so forth. So, yeah, it is money laundering. It is it's ending up with the military industrial complex.
Yes. And I guess further question, Mr. G, is follow-up, is and this is why I said what I said. If you send $100 billion, does Ukraine get $100 billion worth of war material? Or do they get $10 billion and the $90 billion goes elsewhere?
Yeah.
It's overhead. It's
administrative
overhead.
costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously, that's what I'm thinking.
Marketing fees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're probably right. And I don't know if it's 90% of it being siphoned off, but probably a much larger percentage than the American taxpayer is being told.
Because it's warfare, it's very difficult to get someone, a charter accountant to come in and take a look at the books.
Right. Yeah, there's very little oversight going into this. And this, we saw this with Afghanistan, where the Special Investigative, with the Inspector General for Afghanistan Recovery, or SIGAR, found that, SIGAR, that's the acronym, SIGAR, found that a lot of the money that went to Afghanistan did not end up benefiting the people of Afghanistan. It was going to, build, gas stations in the middle of nowhere and things like that. Bridges to nowhere. There were people who were getting very, very rich, but the people themselves were not benefiting from it. This is one of the things that was really, that Kamala Harris did not talk about in her interview with Bret Baier or anywhere else. So she tries to blame Donald Trump for torpedoing the bill that was ostensibly to fix the border earlier this year, ignoring the fact that the problems with the border began on day one of the Biden administration with the executive orders reversing the Trump policies on the border.
Well, that was his question. Day one.
Right.
Your policies were responsible for the following.
And she tried to say, no, it's Trump's fault because this bill that came out last year, 3 years in, but the bottom line is the reason that bill was killed is because, and a number of border state Democratic senators voted against it. The two from California, Democrats from Arizona, both voted against that bill. It died because it would have, for one thing, it would have allowed 1.8 million illegals into the country anyway per year. But it also had $65 billion for Ukraine in a border security bill.
I know.
Yeah. You mentioned Jesus Enrique Rosas earlier, and he was doing a body language analysis of our interview with Bret Baier. And he says, and he stopped it when he got to that point, the $65 billion for the. Now wait, is this? No, I'm not an expert on this. Is this normal? How can they?
He's from Venezuela.
Yeah.
He lives elsewhere now, and I like his analyses. First of all, he is a body language expert, but more than that, he's an expert on what happened in Venezuela, and he sees the same thing happening here in the U.S.
Right. Yeah, he sees socialism on the march here, and he's not happy about that. But he's right. The way bills are constructed here in the U.S., there should be a law that prohibits including provisions that have nothing to do with the heart of the bill. If you've got a bill that is aimed at strengthening the border or fixing the immigration system, sending $65 billion to Ukraine and $10 billion to Israel, and we support, sending aid to Israel. Israel's on the front line of a religious, that's the word I was looking for, a religious and civilizational struggle between Islam and the rest of the world. But don't put it in the bill for the border. I mean, these are the kinds of things you put in a bill hoping that, the other side of the aisle, if they vote against this bill, we can say they voted against helping Israel.
Exactly.
Now we're voting against a stupid bill for the border that didn't fix it. It just threw open the gates. Anyway.
Well, to go into a different part of the world, if you have been watching what happens in Israel, you saw that a drone strike occurred right near in Caesarea, near Netanyahu's home.
Oh, really?
It's his personal home.
Yeah.
Yep. It didn't actually hit the home, but it was very, very close to it. And they were clearly trying to take him out. He wasn't there at the time, but it was clearly an assassination attempt. He came back and said, "Come on. Nothing will deter me," he says. "Nothing you do is going to stop me. He will indeed strike back against Iran." In the meantime, I told Iran is like, Khomeini says, Hamas is still strong. Hamas is still, hey, look, Hamas still alive. Hamas still cool.
Yeah. Well, about that. Some big news this past week of they've decapitated another head on the Hydra of Hamas with Yahya Sinwar. Yeah.
Yep.
Sinwar had been the on-the-ground commander in Gaza since 2017. Ismail Haniyeh, who they said was head of the political arm of Hamas, who was living in Qatar.
Yeah.
In a nice penthouse apartment worth, and Yahya Sinwar, likewise, worth more than $1 billion, reportedly. Don't know that for a fact, but that's been reported. Sinwar was the guy in Gaza controlling the ground troops. And I suspect, even though it's not been reported, I suspect the two of them were rivals for power inside Hamas. But Haniyeh was killed in Tehran on July 31st. Sinwar took over the whole operation. Reportedly, he had come up for air like a whack-a-mole. He'd come out of one of the tunnels. He was in Rafah and was caught by a unit of the IDF of troops who were training to be squad commanders. These were new soldiers. The one who fired the kill shot reportedly has only been in uniform for 9 months. He was not even in the army when this war began a year ago. So they caught him. He was surprised. A firefight ensued. There's some drone footage of a wounded Sinwar in the wreck of a building that had been
I saw that drone footage,
hit by artillery fire, tank fire, whatever at some point. His last act on video was throwing a stick at the drone. And then there are images of him on the internet if you want to find them.
I didn't watch them. I didn't care. I didn't watch that far. I thought I have no desire to see that. I realized that, but there were other videos you could watch elsewhere.
Yeah, he was clearly deceased, and that's been confirmed through dental records, DNA testing ongoing as of this recording. But dental records and fingerprints confirmed that was Yahya Sinwar. He had a passport on him belonging to an UNRWA teacher.
Yes,
United Nations Relief and Works Agency, which is the UN agency supposed to provide aid to Palestinian Arabs.
Isn't that the group that's been nominated for a Peace Prize?
Yeah, they didn't win.
Oh.
Yeah, they didn't win, but they were nominated, which is interesting.
Which was ridiculous.
Yeah, since a number of their employees participated in the October 7th massacre. Unknown why he was carrying this guy's passport, because reportedly Sinwar and this other guy didn't look anything alike. He also had the equivalent of about $10,000 US on him. There was speculation that they were looking for supplies to hole up in the tunnels for a long period. What's interesting is that as soon as his death was confirmed by the Israeli government, Kamala Harris went to a podium and said, "Know this, you will always be brought to justice," as though she were taking credit for...
What?
Oh, did you watch that video? She gave a speech saying that he's been captured and with the assistance of United States intelligence and blah, 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 and know this, terrorist, you will always be brought to... She was the one a year ago who was saying going into Rafah would be a huge mistake, and that's where they got him.
Yes, I did see that headline, but I didn't watch the video. Good grief, woman.
There is nothing about her that is real. She is a construct. She is an empty suit.
She is yes, she is.
In fact, she's got her own plagiarism scandal going on right now. This past week, independent journalist Christopher Rufo, working with a Austrian researcher, Stefan Weber, whose research helped to bring down the president of Harvard, Claudine Gay, showing how her peer-reviewed academic papers had been plagiarized. Apparently, Kamala's 2009 book called Smart on Crime was largely plagiarized. Oh. And they've documented this, showing large sections that were... in some cases, the source was cited, but it was not properly formatted to show what was quoted. So it's like, I'm writing this and I'm just citing the source. No, you're quoting word from word. It has to be set off so you can tell that it...
Exactly. Yeah. And you have to say exactly where you got it. Yeah. You do not take credit for it. You say, I'm quoting someone else.
Right. And in some cases, though, some of the sections were lifted verbatim. Or nearly so from Wikipedia.
I know.
Like, including one that was an incorrect conclusion based on the data.
Yeah. Look, if you want to go to Wikipedia to get research, that's a great place to start. I'm not going to diss that. But the footnotes in Wikipedia, go to those and read the original cited material.
Do not take the word of the Wikipedia editor.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the conclusion may be incorrect.
Yep.
Read the source material, the original source material every time.
Now, this is not really blown up into a major story outside of X. It's on social media. This is being reported. Not seen the corporate media pick this up yet. New York Times did report on it, but they tried to debunk it. But they ignored a lot of the data, the evidence that had been presented by Weber and Rufo, and said, see, nothing to see here. It's like, and so Rufo, who's got quite a following on X, said the New York Times ignored this, and this. And it's like, okay, New York Times clearly carrying water for Kamala Harris.
Well, we need to take a break. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you all about supermoon.
Supermoon?
Supermoon.
Oh.
And new science that indicates a connection between moon and Israel.
Moon spells
moon.
Our new book, The Gates of Hell, is available now, and we have a special offer on it at the Gilbert House store.
You know, you're not going to find a deal like this anywhere else. You're going to get the book, which is a $21.95 value. You're going to get 3 DVDs.
More than 12 hours of video content, plus the book for just $45. That's half price.
That's half price because the whole package at retail is over $90.
The Gates of Hell tackles mysteries like where was Jesus baptized and why did he choose to get baptized in a place known as the Land of the Serpent?
Oh my goodness, you want this deal. This is the kind of thing that you can share with your friends, share with your pastor, read again, because trust me, the source information that Derek and I used for this, you're not going to find it anywhere else.
Right. It's not just an archaeological or historical curiosity. It is relevant to us today. Again, a special offer for the month of October only at gilberthouse.org/store.
Welcome back to PID Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
Once again, that makes me Sharon Gilbert and makes me happy. We want to remind you to download the app, but while you are at gilberthouse.org/store, and then take a look and see what our special is. We got an October special that we may carry over into November because it's been really, really popular.
Yeah, this features our book, The Gates of Hell, as you just heard on the promo. So please take advantage of that. Some really good video content, too. I mean, 13 hours of stuff that's like, I think, 10 different video presentations, plus the long-form interview with Dr. Aaron Judkins about Göbekli Tepe.
Mm-hmm. So, and you've got a new book that's coming out. Do we have copies of that yet?
We don't. Those will be in at the end of the month. But yes, forthcoming, co-authored with Donna Howell and Allie Anderson, Destination Earth, which is about the UFO phenomenon, UAP phenomenon, and is God. Is God an alien? Is Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, an alien? And that sounds, if you're listening to this program, to you, this may sound like a ridiculous notion, but there are people out there who actually are believing this.
It's very popular.
Yeah.
It is very popular. The idea of intelligent design implies that our creator is just an alien from another planet.
Right. So that is one of the questions that's involved. My sections deal with the origin of the ancient aliens hypothesis, showing that comes right out of 19th century occultism. Helena Blavatsky, Aleister Crowley, and you carry that right through to Erich von Däniken and Zechariah Sitchin and Giorgio Tsoukalos and some of these, we'll call them...
big hair guys.
Yeah, evangelists for the ancient aliens gospel.
They are.
On social media.
Yeah, I think they are. That is very, very true.
So anyway, that's part of the October special.
Yes.
While you're there, also check out the merch. We've got mugs, we've got caps, we've got shirts.
And a tote bag.
Oh, yeah, the Red Wing Saga tote bag.
Yeah, to tote all your books.
That is an awesome thing. We'll have to get a bunch of those for the conference in Branson in December.
Know. Maybe GHTV tote bag.
Yes, yes.
Radio tote bag, whatever. We'll see what we can get.
Yeah, but when you're at a conference and you've got... like 22 speakers, as will be at the Branson Christmas Prophecy Conference.
You're going to need a tote bag.
You're going to need a tote bag. So we'll get those tote bags on order from our good friends Kenny and Gidget at Light Hive Creations. And as we've said before, the thing we appreciate about what they're doing, not only does that merchandise help support what we do, but it supports what Kenny C does. Kenny is a gifted musician, world-class musician. and he's teaching a lot of kids are his music students. Some of them come from families who can't afford instruments, and so he uses the proceeds to help provide instrument. That is his ministry. Give the gift of music by getting a GHTV cap or a Red Wing Saga shirt or a tote bag.
Well, before the break, I talked about supermoon, which we just had. The hunter's moon, also called the blood moon. It is the full moon, last full moon in October. And sometimes there are two full moons in October, is why I say that. And this one happened to be a supermoon. And it was the biggest I think we've had 3 supermoons this year. And it was the biggest of them.
Well, what's a regular moon when supermoons are on the table?
I know, you don't want, I want supermoon. Well, the moon has been considered a deity
since the earliest time.
For millennia. For millennia. And in Israel is a city called Jericho.
Yes,
named after
the Amorite moon deity, Yarikh.
Well, there's a YouTube channel that I love to watch called Megalomania.
Megalithomania.
Megalithomania. Sorry. Megalithomania. Yes, Megalithomania. Silly me. And it's this amazing archaeologist, very good host. I originally watched his video about Göbekli Tepe and Arslan Tepe.
Arslan Tepe.
Yeah. Which is very similar. Is it even bigger? Arslan Tepe?
Karahan Tepe.
Karahan Tepe.
Arslan Tepe is an ancient outpost of the kingdom of Uruk, which is the kingdom of Nimrod, which is up in Turkey.
There are lots of those.
Yeah. Arslan Tepe is I think it's Mataya. Anyway, it's in eastern Turkey, which we had planned to visit.
Which, by the way, there have been a lot of earthquakes, big ones.
Right.
6 and over in Turkey over the last few weeks. But he did a walkthrough with Jericho. He actually was in Jericho, and he shows the archaeological digs that are going on there. Jericho is in a zone where you are advised as a Christian, as a Jew, it's a no-go area.
Yeah, although you can visit the archaeological site, the town of Jericho.
And we were going to go there, but we were running late.
Yeah.
But he went there, and I sent the video to Derek, and I said, you have to watch this because, first of all, he is talking about the construction of the city itself gives you astronomical insights to the phases of the moon, which the moon has, I think it's an 18-and-a-half-year cycle.
I think that's right.
It sets along the horizon. And so it takes a long time to figure that out and generations to actually map it out. And when you have buildings that are constructed to follow it, that's even more important. Chaco Canyon has that. Is Chaco Canyon?
Yes.
Yeah. They have buildings that are aligned to the phases of the moon. And wouldn't be surprising that Jericho has it. But what surprised me was he was walking to what he called the tower. And it is bigger at the bottom than it is at the top. So it gets smaller as it goes up. But it's dry stone
dry stacked stone?
Yeah, dry stone construction. So no mortar, but it looked just like stuff in
Sardinia.
Sardinia. Sorry, brain is not working right now. That is part of the Nuraghic civilization.
We share the brain, so it's okay. I'll just,
please. Don't take my brain away. I need it. But it looked so much like it. And there is also another archaeological site in Israel that has the same kind of construction. What?
Very interesting.
I just don't know that they had a tower there.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the site drawings from the dig led by the late Adam Zertal.
But their construction looked identical to the things we had just seen in Sardinia.
Right, the Nuraghic culture there with the tombs of the giants.
And why is that important? It's because there is a connection between Sardinia, many of the Grecian islands, and the Amorites.
Yeah. The cross-pollination, religious and cultural, between the Greek world and even further west, because Sardinia is west of the Italian peninsula, but there were Greek colonies and Phoenician colonies on all of those Mediterranean shores. The Greeks, the Romans, the Phoenicians competed for political power, but the religious cross-pollination was very, very strong. So it's not surprising to us to find not only the tombs of the giants in Sardinia, but Monte Dakota, which is looks like
it's a ziggurat.
Well, a ziggurat, but even more than that, it looks like a massive altar of the biblical style.
Yes, yeah.
A big square altar with the long ramp leading up to it.
It does have that ramp, the same ramp that we see at Joshua's altar.
Right, but you've also got the standing stone to the one side, the men here, and a couple of others that we couldn't see because they were outside the immediate area of Mount Dakota.
Well, there was another one that was right by it that was much smaller.
Yeah.
So 2 menhirs at least.
And then the dolmen, which when we looked at it first, like, okay, this large flat stone, this is probably an altar of some sort. No, it was a partly submerged dolmen. There are a lot of dolmens on the island of Sardinia, a couple hundred. Bought a book on it. It's written in Italian, so I can't read it. I can pick out a few words here and there, but I was able to discern that, yes, there are a couple hundred dolmens on the island of Sardinia, which are all over Israel and Jordan, to 25,000 between the Dead Sea and Mount Hermon. So why would they be in Sardinia? Well, you got people going back and forth. That's why.
And Elahwat is probably, and the name means the forge. It's very possible where Sisera had his encampment.
Well, the Arabic name Al-Hawat, I think, means something else. The walls, I think, but the name in the Bible that was given to it.
Oh, okay, I'm wrong.
Means forge of the Harosheth Hagoyim, means forge of the foreigners. Right. So yeah, but you're right. The name applied to the place does mean the forge, because they were using iron, and they found evidence of that at the site. So, yeah, a lot of cross-pollination going back and forth. As I learned from the research for the second coming of Saturn, the Hivites in the Bible, Hivits, who are mainly in the books of Genesis and Deuteronomy, a bit in Joshua, too, because Joshua had to fight against them at the base of Mount Hermon.
Yeah, I think most people say Hivites. But
Hivites, yeah. The name derives from the Luvian language, which was spoken by people who lived in what is now southern Turkey in the ancient world, for the Achaeans, who were the Mycenaean Greeks. So Agamemnon and Ajax and Achilles, who fought the Trojan War, they were the Mycenaean Greeks. So those were the Hivites of the Bible. And no surprise then that Zeus is Baal.
Well, exactly. So there is a story worldwide where there's a global flood. There are survivors. There are worldwide stories about wise men, sages who come in and teach mankind how to live, give us secret knowledge.
Yeah.
So worldwide, we've got the story of the Watchers. We've got the story of the flood. We've got the story of even other beings who come after the great flood and teach us how to live once again, how to farm and how to build. And well, that would be the 70 or so who were sent down after Babel.
Right. Or perhaps a memory of the pre-flood world, stories that were handed down by Noah and his descendants of these entities who came and taught us all these things. So we could be referring to the pre-flood Watchers.
I think it's both.
Yeah.
Because we still get stories of wise people who come in after the Younger
flood,
Dryas period.
True.
And teach us how to farm and how to build a civilization again.
Yeah. And
it's as if they have the mez, and they're here to apply it.
Yeah. Mez is a Sumerian word that means the principles of civilization. Yeah. It's basically be nice to your neighbor. Here's how you grow grain. Here's how you brew beer, that kind of thing. Those were the mez, the secrets of the gods that were shared with humanity. According to Mesopotamian lore, the Apkallu, which is Sumerian, it would be Abgal. Basically, Apkallu, the Akkadian name, means big watermen because they come from the Apsu, the abyss.
Yes.
They were sent forth from the abyss by the clever god Enki, which means Lord of the Earth.
And to get back to the moon, that is one of the things that was taught, the phases of the moon, how to recognize when the sun is going to be at a certain point, how to know when the summer solstice is here, how to know when the winter solstice is here. Some will say that because it's an agricultural thing. No, it's when you worship your deity.
Yeah. Very important when you're living in a culture like the Arabs, like the Amorites. Much of your territory is desert. So it's really, really hot in the daytime. So you don't do much. Most of your activity would be at night, or at least through part of the night when it's cooler and you could actually move around without the risk of heat stroke.
Mm-hmm.
So the moon becomes really important. Yeah, there are some agricultural aspects to it. You can see that with the cycles of the moon, there's a fertility aspect for your
Mm-hmm.
herds and your flocks and so forth. Even with, human women, you can see that there's that seems to happen at the same time every month. Whenever the moon's this shape, we know that,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So, the moon god seen in Akkadian was very important. In fact, it was in the wilderness of Sin at Mount Sinai, where
Mm-hmm.
Moses went to the mountain of gods, plural,
Over and
Har
over,
Elohim.
the Lord takes over these small g gods, these fake deities. He takes over their territory.
Over their territory. Now, season 2 of Ancient Apocalypse with Graham
Which is why I
Hancock,
brought all this up.
I'm sure. I got the other half of
I
your
know.
brain. I knew that. I was getting.
I think my blood sugar's getting low. I think that's why I can't think.
Well, 15 more minutes and we'll be good.
Hey,
Or 10. Anyway, Graham Hancock is pulling on these threads, but because he doesn't want to go to the Bible for an answer,
I know.
it's driving him nuts, I think.
He's asking the right questions. He's finding material that supports the biblical narrative, and he just doesn't want to go there.
Right. And when I say he's driving him nuts, I don't mean that as a
Oh,
pejorative.
no. I would
It's
love it
because
if he finally saw the truth.
Right.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
he's spending a lot of time and effort and energy into researching the question, and we credit him for that.
Yes.
We encourage you as a Bible believer to watch the program just for the questions that he's raising.
Mm-hmm. And the
But-
information he discovers.
Yes, but the conclusions that he reaches, because
Yeah.
he just won't go to the Bible other than, there's a flood, and that's mentioned in the Bible. He will not look at the cause there, okay? These things were happening on the earth that God would not allow, and said, that's it, we're going to put a stop to that.
Mm.
Which is really sad, because he's asking the right questions. He's just avoiding the right answer.
Yeah. By the way, the ziggurats, those pyramid sort of
Step
shapes,
pyramids, yeah.
I think they were all about trying to appease the god or commune with the god. They were portals.
Yeah. Artificial mountains.
Yeah.
Mike Heiser used to talk about this, that in the ancient world, everybody knew that's where the mountains were where the gods congregated,
Mm-hmm.
which is really interesting. And scholars are now, see, I'm rabbit trailing, and I'm detouring away from my point before I even give context to my detour. It's interesting that this occurred in what is now southeastern Iraq, that they believe that mountains were the home of the gods, because there ain't no mountains in southeast Iraq.
Right.
To get to a mountain, you got to walk a long, long way. But they knew, even in the time of Abraham, which scholars call the Old Babylonian period, this was the time of the Babylonian Empire, which was Amorite under Hammurabi the Great and his 5 predecessors and a couple successors before it was taken over by the Kashites. The Old Babylonian period copy of the Epic of Gilgamesh makes it clear that Mount Hermon was considered a sacred place, the secret dwelling of the Anunnaki.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is where the Ancient Aliens guys kind of ignore inconvenient evidence, because they believe the Anunnaki were these space travelers from the planet Nibiru, which was actually the name of the home city sacred to the chief Mesopotamian god Enlil. By the time of Abraham, they'd been demoted. They were judges in the netherworld.
Exactly.
Just like the sons of
Watchers.
God, the Watchers. Right. They'd been demoted. They'd been banished to the
Mhm.
netherworld. So there was something about mountains that, okay, they're remote, they're far away, they're pristine, unsullied by our grubby human hands. That's where the gods meet. So the step pyramid, made of mud brick, was a crude attempt to recreate something that was suitable for the gods. What's interesting now that scholars have had some more time to do some more research, and this was the detour I was going to make earlier, they're finding that cities in the north of Mesopotamia, like Urkesh, like Tel Brak, like Hamukar, were being developed in the same style. The buildings, the temples were the same style as in Sumer, in the 4th millennium BC. In other words, civilization in the north was developing side by side with the Sumerian civilization. The Sumerians were not the first. They were going side by side with the Hurrians in the north. And there's some evidence based on comparisons of Sumerian, and this is in the Second Coming of Saturn, by the way, the languages of the Hurrians and the Sumerians, both of which are called language isolates.
Mm-hmm.
No other languages like that, but there are similarities between the two, meaning they probably originated in the same place, which based on the pottery, the unique pottery of the Hurrians, places that point of origin on the plains of Ararat, below the mountain where Noah's Ark came to rest.
Well, that would make sense if you have a biblical worldview, wouldn't it?
Yes, it does. They moved south and east, south and west from what is now Armenia, and brought their religious systems with them, which included this idea that the gods are in the netherworld. The Abzu of the Sumerians, the Abi of the Hurrians, and a scholar named Harry Hoffner, 1966, wrote a paper arguing that the Abi was the original word. The Sumerians got it from the Hurrians. So, yeah.
So, supermoon.
Supermoon, I saw you.
Oh, yeah, we used to be able to sing. You get older, you don't use the instrument, and it just goes, oh, I'm out of here.
Yeah. I'm finding the high notes I used to sing when I was singing tenor in the barbershop quartet, they're just not there anymore.
I used to be able to sing the Queen of the Night aria.
Oh,
yeah. And I also sang Violetta's arias, which go up to a high E.
Yeah.
Not a high C, a high E. I could sing the G above that.
I used to be able to hit a high E.
Ooh.
Yeah, we sang with the Ambassadors of Harmony in St. Louis. We sang the Heather on the Hill from Brigadoon. And the tenors had to do an octave stretch. Upon the...
Yeah.
And hit that high note.
E and Sweeney Todd, too, that the tenor has to hit.
Yeah, and I could do it back in the day. But I noticed even back, 10 years ago when I was singing with the Ringtime Quartet back in Illinois, that some of the higher notes, it's like getting to a D now is a problem. So, yeah. C, that's okay. Now even the C is like the top note, and it's really, so, yeah. If I were to do quartetting again, I'd probably switch to lead or baritone.
Well,
anyway,
okay,
that is what it is.
We've done the gamut from everything to everything. But that's how PID radio goes.
It is. We blather until we can't blather no more.
I know.
Just a brief note, if to get political for a second, if she was running against anyone but Donald Trump, Kamala Harris's campaign would be declared dead in the water at this point.
Mm-hmm.
If there was an establishment candidate running as a Republican, Kamala Harris would. Her interview with Bret Baier this past week, kudos to her for sitting down at Fox News, and but boy, it just was not good.
Watch the body language analysis. He stops it. It's like an hour and 30 minutes long. He stops it and shows you the look on her face when she's trying to do these word salads, or when he's asking the question and she's looking. This is after she watched the video of the families of Lake and Riley and others talking about the loss of their children and how it is the fault of this administration.
Right.
And the look on her face it's like she went AWOL for a minute. Just
deer in headlights.
Deer in headlights, not here, just staring. What can I say? I'll move my mouth and see what comes out.
And look, we're not trying to get involved in the left, right. I tried being a political blogger 20 years ago and realized, hey, this is all about, trying to score points on the other team. It's not really about trying to come up with how do we properly govern this country.
No, you and I have gone after the right, too. It isn't, blue or red. It's
my goodness. When I had that daily talk show back in Columbia and the consultant he called me an NPR liberal.
Yeah, because you're actually holding Bush to account.
Yeah, I mentioned Cheney and Halliburton in the same sentence, and he said, NPR liberal. Tim, did you mean to include me on this email? Oh,
I know. I know.
He didn't mean to include me on that email.
Yeah,
that was intended for management.
But the fact is you were coming from a libertarian point of view.
Right.
Not left or right.
Point is, we are trying to be honest about this. Donald Trump, not a perfect candidate. He seems like he'd be hilarious to have as a dinner guest. But,
I've always said that I thought that Bill and Hillary Clinton would be interesting to have dinner with.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of individuals, I would love to sit down with Kennedy.
Oh, Robert. Yeah.
Yeah, RFK Jr.
Yeah, I would too.
I love the fact that he's endorsed Trump. He wants America to get healthy again.
Yes.
It's something that many of our listeners appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
And, you and I we talked last weekend about how you're going into surgery. By the way, pray for him leading up to and on November 8th for the surgery itself and for recovery. It's become, sadly, an all too often performed procedure.
Yeah.
And I think that it may have something to do with our diets.
Could be.
You and I try to eat well, but who knows how long bad habits can stick with you.
Yeah, 50 years of eating badly and then 10 years of eating healthy.
Yeah.
Well,
you and I have been eating really healthy for the last 10 years, but before that,
not so much. So we'll see. And the Lord's got all this. This is one of those things where, God didn't suddenly slap himself on the forehead and say, boy, I didn't see that coming. Well, hopefully no, he's got all this and he's allowing it for his reasons. So,
he's constantly recalculating because he works all things together for good.
Right. So just, we mentioned this not for sympathy's sake or anything like that.
Because you guys are going through stuff like this too.
Absolutely.
We know that. And if you please share those prayer requests on our app.
Yes. Just letting you know in case our production schedule will more than likely become a little intermittent during the month of November, but praying that my last post-op visit with this vascular surgeon on December 5th, the first day of the Branson Christmas Prophecy Conference, is a clean bill of health, maybe moving a little gingerly.
Very likely.
But God willing, we'll be at the Branson Christmas Prophecy Conference and hope to see you there. We'll have all of our stuff. We'll have T-shirts and mugs and things. We'll load up on some of those things. But mainly there for the presentations. I gave them my presentation titles. The Gates of Hell will be one. Talk about why we believe Jesus was baptized in a place that very few other people believe. I don't know that anyone else has identified the site that we think
it's us and Doug Van Dorn.
I think you're right. Yeah. And that may also be the site where Jesus fed the 5,000.
Mm-hmm. And that's definitely
Doug. Yeah, Doug was the one who pointed that out. We'll talk about that and why that's relevant, not just historically, but prophetically. Because I think Psalm 68 speaks to that region being very important prophetically in the final struggle against chaos and the fallen realm.
Exactly.
And the second one will be the secret history of Israel. I will give that presentation there.
A very important one.
I will try to condense it down to a 60-minute time slot, because the last two times I've done it, it's been like an hour and 45 minutes. So we'll have to condense it down. But we're working on a talkumentary, which is now in the hands of the wonderful videographer and editor Matthew Puskarich, who does a lot of work for Skywatch TV. He really has been a true blessing. Skywatch TV for the last 10 years would have been really in trouble had it not been for Matt and Ashley, his wife. They've done the closed captioning for Skywatch TV for years. He did the video editing on the Void Earth documentary and the filming, which came out just amazing.
Oh, I know. It's so good. And there's another documentary coming out that we did with Donna. So
yes,
that will be next year, I think.
Right. That is on her Handmaiden's Conspiracy. Right. So Matt has got the video in hand. We're working now to get the B-roll that he needs to illustrate the secret history of Israel. And when we are ready to announce that, we will so do. But I will be giving that talk in Branson.
Also, don't forget that there is a virtual conference from Skywatch TV.
Yes, that goes live on November 30th, by which I mean the videos will be available for you to watch on your schedule. Yeah, there is no conference schedule. You set the conference schedule.
Right.
24 presenters. My goodness. Judd Burton, Ryan Pitterson, Carl Gallups, Zev Porat, Dr. Igal German, Dr. Mike Spalding.
Yep, go to
Doug Van Dorn. Yep, sorry, DefenderConference.com.
Yep, that's where you're going to see all the names, because we're likely to forget one, and we don't want to do that.
Absolutely.
So that's the danger when you start a list.
Yes, through November 15th, it's $85. After November 15th, $95. 90 days access from the time you sign up. Well, from November 30th. And even if you sign up after November 30th, it's still 90 days.
Yep. So. And don't forget, by the way, if you download our app, you'll get to see the Bible's greatest mysteries. You can see them on other platforms, but, maybe we'll put some extras there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just app-only kind of things.
Yeah. It is available on YouTube. It's got its own YouTube channel at The Bible's Greatest Mysteries, all one word, but on the app. Get the app. Carl Gallup's. We got his first 2 programs out. Number 3 is forthcoming.
Oh, they are so good.
Yeah.
I mean, they are so good.
Absolutely. Boy, what he finds in the Hebrew is just astonishing.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's good friends with Zev Porat, he double checks his work with Zev. Am I making this up?
Yep.
No. So yeah, some phenomenal stuff there. So do check that out. Tell your friends about it. And tomorrow, Gilbert House Fellowship, our Bible study. And tomorrow evening, it is Iron and Myth.
Ooh.
We discuss Greek and Roman mythology, their religion, and the overlap with the Bible.
Oh, great. Were we going to answer a question today?
Well,
if you don't have one available and ready to go, then we'll go ahead and say that we'll answer 2 tomorrow morning.
I think I do. Just let me bring up the notes here. I left my iPad in the home, inside the house, and didn't bring it to the office with me.
The dogs are probably on it.
Yeah, they're checking their...
What's coming in? Did she get more snacks? We need to order more snacks.
Checking the Amazon orders, yes. Where did I put it? Well, I'm not seeing it right here.
Well, we will answer 2 questions tomorrow morning, so please continue to ask questions of Derek and myself on the app, because we'll do our best to answer them on the podcasts, because oftentimes the answer is just too long to discuss in a written form.
Absolutely. So, we'll check that out. We'll have that for you tomorrow. And until then, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and for Grace and Glory, who are in the house. Bye-bye, everybody.
PID Radio is produced by Gilbert House and released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, Twitter @PID Radio, or the PID Radio page at Facebook. Join us each week for our online Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship, online at gilberthouse.org.